Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Brian Jeffer with The Big Lead. Today, we are joined by Charlotte Wilder, a senior writer at Sports Illustrated. You can find her at The Wilder Things on Twitter. Make sure to give her a follow. And that's actually kind of how this started. Was yesterday was your birthday, so happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
As
31, the least important birthday of all time.
and I noticed that yesterday, in lieu of gifts, you asked people to donate to Feeding America, a hunger relief charity where $1 provides 10 meals for Americans in need. I really thought that was just a really cool thing. You got a lot of support from Sarah Spain, Melissa Jacobs, Treen Williams, other members of the sports community. How did that start for you, and why did you choose to use your birthday as an opportunity to try and get the message out there?
Well, I think, it's right now, everyone is so online. If you're lucky enough to be healthy and in your home and, either working from home or sort of hunkering down, and by lucky, I mean, you're not affected by this virus immediately. I think everyone's just kind of on their computers. And I knew that people, when you go to Twitter and it has happy birthday balloons that pop up on your profile, and it's your birthday, I knew that people would see that and not saying that like, I'm so great, everyone's going to wish me happy birthday. But even if one person did, and I was able to say, hey, I know it's my birthday, thank you so much for saying that, but like, let's do something. Like, I knew there was going to be increased engagement, and I thought it would just be a great time to use that to harness it to say, while I have you considered donating? And I chose Feeding America because, obviously, there's so many things we need right now and so many people who are hurting and medical supplies, but like I can't produce that. Like there's a shortage, but what we can do is for the people who are hurting, who can't afford food right now, it makes such a huge difference to those people and those families. And I think that if you have a platform of any kind, mine's not huge by any means, but it's there. And I feel a real responsibility to try to leverage it in some way rather than just sort of sitting around feeling kind of helpless.
Yeah, that was another thing that I really enjoyed about seeing that was you were using your platform for good. We've seen other people like Steph Curry doing that. It's been really positive from my perspective. I also thought yours was kind of interesting too, though, that you said you would respond with kind of funny gifs, and you put Gritty and SpongeBob and the Muppets and a cat high fiving a guy. Was that just to see if you could get increased engagement? How did that kind of come about?
Yeah, I think it was for increased engagement. I think it was also acknowledging people who took the time to do this. I was so moved that anyone was able to be that generous and chose to be. And I think that it's important when people do things like that to acknowledge it and to say thank you and to say, like, I see you, I recognize what you're doing, because then it's more likely to keep going and to feel appreciated, and like what you're doing is good for people out there in the world, but there's also a sort of tangible, like, hey, I recognize this, thank you. And I mean, even in like, I think part of the reason I was so glad you reached out is like, I don't want to be sitting here saying like, look what I did, such a great thing for my birthday or whatever. But like, I hope that if we can keep talking about it, maybe more people will donate. Maybe they'll see this interview and be like, oh, go to feedingamerica.org. It's super easy. There's a donation page. I'll tweet it out again. But I think just keeping whatever momentum going we can to help people in a time that is so scary and unprecedented is really important.
Yeah, I agree completely. And it really was great to see the sports community kind of rally around that. And you're right, it wasn't about your birthday. It was about giving back. And you saw all the different reporters respond accordingly. How much were you able to raise so far?
So I don't know exact numbers, because when some people tweeted me, I said, show me the receipt or the page, whatever. And some
Yeah.
people kept the dollar amount on, other people didn't. But between Twitter and Instagram and what I gave, I think sort of a ballpark I came up with was $3,500, which is pretty good. I mean, I think we can do more. I think we can keep it going. But in one day, to see that kind of to see people step up, whether it was some people gave like $250, some people gave $10, and no matter what, all of it matters so much. And so that's 35,000 meals for people in need, and it's such a tangible measurement, to say like $1, 10 meals, let's go. And I really hope it's something that we can keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. That was the reason why I thought it was so important to reach out. Again, remember feedingamerica.org, also at Feeding America on social media. It's a great cause, and certainly worth donating to. It's also interesting because in these times, as a sports reporter, we also still have jobs to do, right? And I know, and it does feel very unimportant. You know, I saw people actually tweeting today about MLB opening day, and then you see the jobless reports, and it just feels unimportant. But at the same time, right, we kind of still have a responsibility to bring some levity, or as much levity as you can as a sports reporter. How are you doing it? Because, we were talking about this before, but as somebody who's really like an on location, in-depth journalist, how do you do it being remote?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely bizarre. I think I've been struggling a little bit with that too. What is the balance of jokes versus, I tweeted some joke and then I refreshed Twitter and it was how many people had died in New York City. And I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And so it's this real, and I felt this before in my career. There have been times where, terrible things are happening in the world, and I'm, asking players if they like The Bachelor, and it's this like huge cognitive dissonance for me. And I think, I started my career as a general assignment reporter, not in sports. And so sometimes I feel almost guilty about not doing more that might seem to have a bigger impact. But I think something that I've just sort of leaned into is I think for whatever reason, I'm very lucky that people connect with what I say or with, the jokes that I make. And I think right now, even in bad times, we do need some lightness, and we need something to kind of keep us going. Sorry, I just touched my face. Oh my God. Something to keep us going. And especially if this is going to be as long as it is, it's really important to take psychological breaks, even if you are at home. And obviously none of this is as important as the medical workers. None of this is as important at all. But if it can help people get through it, if it can make people stay at home a little bit more, then it's something. And so I think for me, most of what I do is on the ground. And so it's been kind of strange adjusting to that. Like I had all these plans for the things I wanted to cover coming up. But I also I think there are ways to do stuff remotely. Hopefully I'm going to have some interviews planned. I'm also going to be coming up with sort of a few different series or videos or things that you can do and write, whether by making calls or by making, riffing on something, imagining things like, I've done stuff before that's like recapping Air Bud, like very, very things that kind of are dumb but are entertaining and sports related as much as possible. So I think it's just a matter of adapting and being creative and trying to think like, okay, where's a lane that I can fit in, or what can I give people? What's something that might resonate? And also, not losing sight of the fact that this is not crucial right now, but is hopefully something additive, or something that, if it makes one person smile in a bad time, then it feels like, okay, that's something. That's something.
When sports come back, do you think that you're going to look to cover them in a different way? I mean, it's hard to say, obviously, because we don't know exactly what that's going to look like. Yeah. But I've been thinking about that a lot recently, is like, how do you cover sports when they're actually being played and there's still kind of this underlying, situation that most likely is still going to be going on? I'd love to just get your thoughts on that.
Oh, man, I've been thinking about that too. I don't know. I think we do have a responsibility to continue covering sports as we always have, because people love it. People want that. And at the same time, it's never, until there's a vaccine, until there's an actual end to this, with who knows. I think there are just too many unknowns to even be able to answer that fully. But what I do think is that no matter what that looks like or how it comes back, it's going to be really crucial to keep perspective, and to do so and to cover things in a respectful way, of, people who've been affected by this. To We're going to have to recalibrate, I think, how we talk about everything. And so I hope they can come back. I also think it is so much more important to protect the health of the people in this country, of people who might go, who are playing the sport. So, in the scheme of things, delay it as long as you have to. But I also think that it's okay to be sad about that. Like, I miss it dearly. I mean, today is supposed to be opening day, and it feels outside. It feels like it feels an opening day, and it's just not here. And like, all I want is to watch the Red Sox, and that's not going to happen. And you can know in the scheme of things that doesn't really matter. But I think that as soon as you get into kind of the who's allowed to be sad about what, it's just pointless, because we're all sad about big things and little things right now, and sports are a part of that. And it's feeling guilty about feeling a certain way isn't going to help anything.
I couldn't agree more. And Charlotte, you really did provide some perspective yesterday with the Feeding America initiative. It was really great. I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Again, Charlotte Wilder at the Wilder Things. This is Brian Jeffer for The Big Lead. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Brian. Everybody go give money if you can. If you can't, don't feel bad about it.